She doesn't even know what day it is anymore. Sign the papers. That's what my oldest son, Gregory, said to the nursing home administrator while I sat in a wheelchair 3 feet away, staring blankly at the wall like I'd lost my mind. What Gregory didn't know, what none of my 3 children knew, was that I understood every single word. I remembered every betrayal. And for 11 months, I played the role of a senile old woman while secretly recording evidence that would destroy their lives and send one of them to federal prison. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you how a 74-year-old grandmother from Scottsdale, Arizona, outsmarted her own children and reclaimed everything they stole from her. My name is Eleanor Patricia Hartwell. My late husband, Richard, built Hartwell Construction from nothing, started with 1 truck and a toolbox, ended with the largest commercial construction company in the Southwest. When he died 8 years ago, he left me everything, a $4.2 million estate, including our home, investment properties, stocks, and enough cash to live comfortably for the rest of my life. Richard and I had 3 children together. Gregory, the oldest at 52, was supposed to take over the business. Instead, he ran it into the ground within 3 years of his father's death. Bad investments, shady deals, lawsuits I had to settle with my own money. By the time I finally pulled the plug and sold what was left, Gregory had burned through his inheritance and most of his wife's trust fund. Then there's my daughter, Vanessa. She's 49, twice divorced, and hasn't worked a day in her life. Vanessa's hobby is spending money, my money, mostly. Every few months, she'd call with some new crisis, car trouble, credit card debt, a business opportunity that always fell through. I must have given her $300,000 over the years, never seeing a penny back. Finally, there's my youngest, Mitchell. At 45, Mitchell is the one I always thought was different. Quieter, gentler, more like his father. He became a doctor, a cardiologist, actually, and I was so proud of him. Until I discovered what he was really doing behind closed doors. But that revelation came later. Much later. The trouble started 2 years ago, right after I turned 72. I'd been having some memory issues, nothing serious, just the normal forgetfulness that comes with age. I'd walk into a room and forget why. I'd lose my reading glasses. I'd occasionally blank on a word in conversation. Normal stuff. Annoying, but normal. Then I made a mistake. I mentioned it to Gregory during one of his rare visits. "Mom, that doesn't sound normal," he said, his voice dripping with fake concern. "Have you seen a doctor?" "It's nothing, sweetheart. Just old age." "Still, you should get checked out. Just to be safe." He was so insistent. So caring. So completely full of ulterior motives, as I would soon discover. A week later, Gregory called again. He'd made an appointment for me with its specialist, a neurologist named Dr. Howard Finch. He even offered to drive me there himself. I should have been suspicious. Gregory hadn't driven me anywhere since he was 16 and needed practice hours for his license. Dr. Finch was pleasant enough, but something about him felt off. He asked me questions, ran some tests, and then sat me down with a grave expression. "Mrs. Hartwell, I'm concerned about what I'm seeing. Your cognitive tests show significant decline. I believe you may be in the early stages of dementia." I was stunned. That can't be right. I feel fine. That's often how it starts. The patient doesn't notice, but the signs are there. I'd recommend we start you on medication immediately, and I think we need to discuss long-term care options. Long-term care? Meaning a nursing home. Isn't that a bit extreme? You said it's early stages. Better to plan now than wait until there's a crisis. Your son mentioned he's willing to help manage your affairs during this transition. That's a blessing, Mrs. Hartwell. Many patients don't have that kind of support. I looked at Gregory, who was nodding solemnly. Too solemnly. Like an actor who'd rehearsed his lines. That's when the first alarm bell went off in my head. I didn't say anything to Gregory. Didn't argue, didn't push back. I just smiled and let them think I was accepting my fate. But I wasn't. That night, I did something I'd never done before. I googled Dr. Howard Finch. What I found made my blood run cold. Dr. Finch had been investigated 3 times by the Arizona Medical Board for questionable diagnoses, specifically, for diagnosing dementia in patients who later turned out to be perfectly healthy. 2 of those patients had lost their estates to family members who used the diagnosis to gain control of their finances. The investigations had been dropped due to lack of evidence. But the pattern was clear. I dug deeper. Property records, court filings, business licenses. It took me 2 weeks, but I finally found the connection. Dr. Howard Finch had received a $200,000 consulting fee from a company called Southwest Care Solutions, LLC. Southwest Care Solutions was owned by Gregory Hartwell. My own son had paid a corrupt doctor to declare me mentally unfit so he could steal my estate. I could have confronted them right then. Could have called a lawyer, reported Finch to the medical board, had Gregory arrested. But I knew that wouldn't be enough. Gregory was just the front man, I was sure of it. This scheme was too sophisticated for him. He didn't have the patience or the intelligence to pull it off alone. I needed to know who else was involved. And the only way to find out was to let them think their plan was working. So I started faking. It began small. I'd repeat myself in conversations. Forget names I'd known for decades. Leave the stove on. Wander into the backyard at odd hours. Gregory watched me like a hawk, reporting every symptom to Dr. Finch. Within a month, Finch had upgraded my diagnosis to moderate cognitive decline and recommended immediate placement in a memory care facility. A family meeting was called. All three of my children gathered in my living room, the first time they'd all been in the same room in years. "Mom, we're worried about you," Vanessa said, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. Crocodile tears. She'd never been a good actress. "We think it's time to consider assisted living," Gregory added. "Somewhere you can get the care you need." Mitchell was quiet through most of it. He sat in the corner, staring at his hands. I watched him carefully. Was he in on it? Or was he just too weak to stand up to his siblings? "I don't want to leave my home," I said, letting my voice quaver. "We know, Mom. But it's not safe for you here anymore. What if you fall? What if you forget to take your medication? What if there's a fire?" "We found a wonderful place," Vanessa chimed in. "Golden Sunset Memory Care. It's very comfortable." I'd already researched Golden Sunset. It was a mid-tier facility with a history of understaffing and safety violations. Not the kind of place you'd send a beloved parent. But exactly the kind of place you'd send someone you wanted to forget about. "What about my house?" I asked. "My things? We'll take care of everything," Gregory said smoothly. "You don't need to worry about any of it. We'll handle the finances, the property, all of it. You just focus on getting better." Getting better from a disease I didn't have. Right. I let them believe I was too confused to understand what was happening. I signed the papers they put in front of me, or rather, I pretended to sign them. I'd been practicing a fake signature for weeks, one that looked shaky and uncertain. Nothing like my real handwriting. The next day, they moved me into Golden Sunset Memory Care. And my real work began. Here's what my children didn't know about Golden Sunset. The facility administrator, a woman named Patricia Okonkwo, had been my housekeeper's sister-in-law for 15 years. Before I ever set foot in that place, I'd already made arrangements. Patricia gave me a private room with a good lock. She assigned nurses I could trust. And she helped me set up a system of hidden cameras and recording devices that would capture every conversation, every visit, every incriminating word. The technology these days is remarkable. Tiny cameras that look like buttons. Audio recorders no bigger than a pen cap. A secure cloud storage system that backed everything up in real time. My children thought I was sitting in my room, staring at walls, drooling into my oatmeal. In reality, I was building a case. The first month, Gregory came to visit 3 times. Each visit, he brought papers for me to sign, power of attorney documents, property transfers, account authorizations. I signed them all with my fake shaky signature, making sure the cameras caught every moment. "That's great, Mom," he'd say, patting my hand like I was a child. "You just rest now. Let us handle everything." After he left, I de-photographed the documents with my hidden phone. Patricia smuggled it in for me, and sent them to my real lawyer, Harold Becker, a pit bull of an estate attorney who Richard had used for 30 years. "Eleanor, this is fraud," Harold told me during one of our secret phone calls. "Clear-cut elder abuse. I can shut this down right now." "Not yet. I need to know how deep it goes." "You're taking a risk. Every day you wait, they're moving more assets." "I know. But I need proof that will put them away. All of them. I won't give them a chance to wriggle out of this." Harold sighed. "You're one stubborn woman, Eleanor. Richard always said that's why he married me." By month 3, I had enough evidence to convict Gregory of fraud, forgery, and elder abuse. But I still didn't know about Vanessa and Mitchell. Vanessa's involvement became clear when she showed up at Golden Sunset with a real estate agent. "We're selling Mom's house," she announced to Patricia, not even bothering to visit me first. "I need to get some photos and measurements." "Mrs. Hartwell hasn't authorized any sale," Patricia said carefully. "She doesn't need to. My brother has power of attorney. It's already done." I watched from my window as they walked through my home, the home Richard built for me, the home where I raised my children, the home filled with 40 years of memories. Vanessa pointed at things, laughed at things, tossed things in garbage bags like they were worthless. My wedding photos. Richard's awards. The quilts my mother made before she died. Garbage. I didn't cry. I couldn't afford to. But I made a note, Vanessa was in on it. She wasn't just benefiting, she was actively participating. That left Mitchell. Mitchell visited me once a month, always alone, always with the same haunted look in his eyes. He'd sit by my bed and talk to me, even though he thought I couldn't understand. "I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. I didn't know it would go this far. Gregory said you needed help. He said this was best for you. Sorry didn't mean innocent. I should have stopped them. I should have said something. But I needed the money, Mom. The hospital found out about the prescriptions. They're investigating. If I don't pay back what I owe." My heart broke. My Mitchell, my youngest, my gentle boy, a criminal. He'd been writing fraudulent prescriptions for opioids and selling them on the side. The hospital had discovered the scheme and was preparing to press charges. Gregory had offered to make the problem go away, in exchange for Mitchell's cooperation in stealing my estate. "I never wanted to hurt you," Mitchell whispered, tears streaming down his face. I didn't have a choice." "You always have a choice," I thought. "You just didn't want to face the consequences." I had everything I needed now. But I waited. 2 more months. Gathering more evidence, building an airtight case. Making sure there would be no escape. In month 11, Gregory made his final move. He showed up at Golden Sunset with a new set of papers. These weren't just property transfers, they were commitment papers. He wanted to have me declared permanently incapacitated and transferred to a locked psychiatric facility. "She's getting worse," he told Patricia. "The dementia has progressed. She needs round-the-clock supervision in a secure environment." Translation: he wanted me locked away forever, where I couldn't interfere with his plans. Patricia stalled him, told him there was paperwork that needed processing, evaluations that needed completing. She bought me 2 weeks. I used every minute. The courtroom was packed. Gregory, Vanessa, and Mitchell sat at the defendant's table with their lawyers, looking confused. They'd been summoned for what they thought was a routine competency hearing, a formality to confirm my mental incapacity and finalize their control of my estate. They didn't know I was coming. When I walked through the doors, flanked by Harold Becker and 2 federal marshals, the look on their faces was worth 11 months of oatmeal and staring at walls. "Mom?" Vanessa's voice cracked. What are you doing here?" "Good morning, sweetheart," I said, my voice steady and clear. "Miss me?" Gregory shot to his feet. "This is ridiculous. She's not competent to be here. She has dementia." Dr. Finch is currently in federal custody," Harold interrupted smoothly. "He was arrested this morning for healthcare fraud, conspiracy, and filing false medical reports. He's already started cooperating with prosecutors." The color drained from Gregory's face. "Your Honor," Harold continued, "I'd like to introduce into evidence Eleanor Hartwell's medical records from 3 independent physicians, all of whom have confirmed that she is, and always has been, mentally competent." The diagnosis from Dr. Finch was fraudulent, obtained through a bribe paid by her son Gregory Hartwell. He laid a stack of documents on the judge's bench. "I'd also like to introduce 11 months of video and audio recordings, captured at Golden Sunset Memory Care, documenting systematic elder abuse, fraud, forgery, and conspiracy to steal Mrs. Hartwell's $4.2 million estate." A screen flickered to life. The first video showed Gregory at my bedside, coaching me through signing documents. "That's great, Mom. You just sign right here. You don't even need to read it. We're taking care of everything." The second video showed Vanessa going through my house with the real estate agent. "Everything has to go. I'm not keeping any of this old junk. Just throw it out." The third video showed Mitchell, crying, confessing to his prescription fraud and explaining how Gregory had blackmailed him into participating. "I didn't have a choice, Mom. I didn't have a choice." By the time the fourth video played, Vanessa was sobbing. Gregory was screaming at his lawyer. And Mitchell was staring at me with an expression I'd never seen before: shame, guilt, and something that might have been respect. The judge called a recess. When we reconvened, everything had changed. Based on the evidence presented, Judge Amanda Morrison said, her voice cold with barely contained fury, "I am dismissing all guardianship proceedings and restoring full control of her estate to Eleanor Patricia Hartwell." I let out a breath I'd been holding for 11 months. "Furthermore, I am recommending immediate criminal prosecution of Gregory Allen Hartwell on charges of elder abuse, fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. Vanessa Marie Porter is hereby charged with conspiracy and theft. Mitchell Richard Hartwell is charged with accessory to fraud, pending cooperation with federal investigators regarding separate prescription fraud allegations." "Your Honor, please," Gregory started. "Mr. Hartwell, I suggest you save your pleas for the criminal court. Bailiff, take him into custody." I watched them handcuff my oldest son and lead him away. Vanessa collapsed into her chair, wailing. Mitchell just sat there, motionless, accepting his fate. After the hearing, Mitchell asked to speak with me. Just the 2 of us. We sat in an empty conference room, a table between us like a barrier. "How long did you know?" he asked quietly. "From the beginning. Or close to it. And you let me confess to you." All those visits. You heard everything. I did. He closed his eyes. I deserve whatever's coming. Probably. But I want to understand, Mitchell. You were a good boy. A good man. How did you end up here? For a long moment, he didn't answer. Then, slowly, the story came out. It had started small, a few prescriptions for patients who were in genuine pain but couldn't afford treatment. Mitchell had felt like he was helping. Then a colleague introduced him to someone willing to pay cash for pills, no questions asked. The money was intoxicating. It solved problems, paid off debts, bought things he'd never been able to afford on a doctor's salary. By the time he realized how deep he was, it was too late. The hospital was investigating. His license was at risk. His entire career, his identity, everything he'd worked for, gone. Then Gregory made his offer. Help with Mom's estate, and the money would make everything go away. I knew it was wrong, Mitchell said, his voice breaking. I knew what we were doing to you. But I convinced myself it was better this way. That you were really sick, that you'd be better off not knowing, that we were just managing the inevitable. You convinced yourself I was already gone, so it didn't matter what you did to me. Yes. The word was barely a whisper. I looked at my son, this broken man I'd carried inside me, nursed at my breast, watched graduate medical school with tears of pride streaming down my face. I can't forgive you, Mitchell. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I can tell you this, if you cooperate fully with the investigators, if you take responsibility for what you've done, if you use whatever time you have left, in prison or out of it, to become the man your father believed you could be, then maybe someday we can have a conversation about forgiveness. And if I can't do that? Then you'll be just like your brother. And I'll mourn you like you're already dead. He nodded slowly. When the marshals came to take him, he didn't resist. The aftermath was brutal. Gregory was convicted on all charges and sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. His wife divorced him before the trial even ended. Vanessa pleaded guilty to reduced charges and received 5 years of probation, community service, and a court order to repay every cent she'd taken from my estate. She moved to a tiny apartment in Tucson and got a job at a department store. Last I heard, she was working retail for the first time in her life. Mitchell cooperated fully. He lost his medical license, of course, and spent 18 months in a minimum security facility. When he got out, he enrolled in a substance abuse counselor training program. He sends me letters sometimes, updates on his progress, his therapy, his slowly rebuilding life. And I read them. I don't respond. Not yet. Dr. Finch lost his license, his practice, and his freedom. He is serving 12 years for his role in what the prosecutors called a systematic scheme to prey on vulnerable elderly patients and their families. The nursing home scheme he'd been running with Gregory had victimized at least 7 other families before I stopped it. 7 other mothers and fathers, locked away, their estates stolen, their lives erased. I helped make sure they got justice too. I'm 75 now. I still live in my house, the one Vanessa tried to sell, the one Gregory tried to steal, the one Richard built for me all those years ago. I've made some changes. New security system. New housekeeper. New estate plan that puts everything in a trust my children can never touch. Patricia Okonkwo from Golden Sunset visits me for tea sometimes. We've become genuine friends. She tells me about other families struggling with similar situations, and when I can, I help. Money for lawyers, connections to honest doctors, sometimes just a phone call to let them know they're not alone. Richard would have liked that. He always said the best thing you could do with money was use it to help people who needed it. Last week, I got a visitor I wasn't expecting. Mitchell showed up at my door, unannounced, holding a small wrapped package. Mom, he said. I'm not here to ask for anything. I wanted you to have this. Inside the package was my mother's quilt, the one Vanessa had thrown in the garbage. Mitchell had found it at a thrift store, recognized it, and bought it back. It took me 6 months to track it down, he said. I know it doesn't make up for anything. I know I can never undo what I did. But I thought you should have it back. I held the quilt in my hands. It was faded, worn, stained in places it hadn't been before. But it was still my mother's work. Still a piece of my history. Thank you, Mitchell. Can I come in? Just for a minute? I looked at my son. This man who had betrayed me, who had helped steal everything I had, who had sat by my bedside. And confessed his crimes while I pretended to be a vegetable. This man who had spent 18 months in prison and come out different. Humbler. Quieter. More like the boy I remembered. 5 minutes, I said. And you're making the tea. He smiled, a real smile, the first I'd seen from him in years. We sat in my kitchen, drinking tea, not saying much. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't reconciliation. It was just 2 people sharing a moment, trying to figure out if there was anything left to salvage. Maybe there was. Maybe there wasn't. But I was willing to find out. Some people ask me if I regret faking dementia for 11 months. Living in that nursing home. Eating that terrible food. Pretending to be someone I wasn't. I don't. Those 11 months taught me more about my children than the previous 50 years combined. They showed me who Gregory and Vanessa really were, and who Mitchell could still become. They also taught me something about myself. I'm stronger than I ever knew. Smarter. More patient. More ruthless, when I need to be. My children thought they were taking advantage of a helpless old woman. They didn't realize the old woman was taking notes. I keep a copy of the courtroom transcript on my nightstand. Not to gloat, though I'd be lying if I said there wasn't some satisfaction in it. I keep it to remember. Remember what my children were willing to do for money. Remember what it took to stop them. Remember that the people who are supposed to love you the most can hurt you the worst. And remember that sometimes, the best revenge is simply surviving. My name is Eleanor Patricia Hartwell. I'm 75 years old. My children declared me mentally unfit and stole my $4 million estate. They thought I didn't understand. They thought I couldn't hear. But I understood everything. I heard everything. And I recorded everything. For 11 months, I played the role of a senile old woman. Then I walked into that courtroom and took back my life. Don't ever underestimate a mother. Especially one who's been watching. Epilogue, 1 year later. The letter arrived on a Tuesday morning, exactly 1 year after the courtroom hearing. It was from Gregory. Written from federal prison in Florence, Arizona. I almost threw it away unopened. What could he possibly have to say that I'd want to hear? More excuses? More justifications? More attempts to manipulate me, even from behind bars? But curiosity got the better of me. I poured myself a cup of coffee, sat on my porch, and opened the envelope. Mom, I've been in here for 11 months now. Plenty of time to think. Plenty of time to remember. I keep going back to that day in your hospital room, when Dr. Finch gave you the diagnosis. I remember watching your face, looking for fear, confusion, weakness. Looking for proof that this was going to be easy. What I didn't see, what I was too blind to see, was the way your eyes sharpened. Just for a second. Like you were sizing up an opponent. I should have known right then that you were onto us. Dad always said you were the smartest person he'd ever met. He said you could read people like other people read books. I thought he was exaggerating. He wasn't. I'm not writing to ask for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. What I did to you is unforgivable, and I'm prepared to spend the rest of my life paying for it. I'm writing because I need you to know something. I wasn't always this person. There was a time when I wanted to be like Dad, honest, hardworking, building something real. But somewhere along the way, I took a wrong turn. Then another. Then another. By the time I realized how lost I was, I couldn't see the way back. That's not an excuse. Just an explanation. The business failed because of me. The debts piled up because of me. The scheme to steal your estate, that was all me. Vanessa and Mitchell were just along for the ride. Guilty, yes. But I was the driver. I'm not asking you to visit. I'm not asking you to respond. I just needed you to know that I understand now. I understand what I threw away. And I'll spend the rest of my life regretting it. Your son, though I've lost the right to call myself that, Gregory. I read the letter 3 times. Then I folded it carefully and put it back in the envelope. Was it genuine? Maybe. Prison has a way of forcing reflection. Or maybe it was just another manipulation, Gregory's attempt to plant seeds for an early parole. I couldn't tell. And maybe that was the saddest part. I didn't respond. But I didn't throw it away either. I put it in a drawer with the other letters, Mitchell's monthly updates, the occasional card from Vanessa, though those had stopped after the first few months, and now this. Evidence. Just in case. Old habits die hard. Patricia came for tea last weekend. She brought news from Golden Sunset. We've had 3 more cases this year, she said, shaking her head. 3 more families trying to dump their parents so they can get the money early. And we stopped them. Your protocol works beautifully. Hidden cameras, independent medical evaluations, the whole thing. Those families never knew what hit them. I smiled. After the trial, I donated $500,000 to Golden Sunset to establish an elder protection program. Patricia ran it personally, and she was ruthless. And any updates on the Thompson case? Charges filed yesterday. The son is looking at 8 to 10 years. The mother is being moved back to her home next week. Another family saved. Another predator stopped. Richard would have been proud. The phone rang that evening. I checked the caller ID, Seattle area code. Barbara Okonkwo, Patricia's daughter, who worked as a prosecutor in Washington state. Mrs. Hartwell? It's Barbara. I hope I'm not calling too late. Not at all, dear. What can I do for you? I wanted to let you know, we used your case as a template for a new elder abuse prosecution here in King County. Got a conviction last week. 12 years for the son, 6 for the daughter. That's wonderful news. The defense attorney tried to argue that hidden cameras violated privacy rights. The judge shut him down immediately. Said your case established clear precedent. My case? Setting precedent for elder protection across the country. Never in my wildest dreams did I imagine that 11 months of pretending to be senile would change the law. But here we were. Thank you for letting me know, Barbara. It means more than you know. Thank you, Mrs. Hartwell. What you did, the courage it took, it's helped so many families. You should be proud. After I hung up, I sat in the darkening living room, thinking about all the people I'd never meet. The mothers and fathers sitting in nursing homes right now, wondering if their children really loved them or just wanted their money. The families gathering around kitchen tables, plotting ways to steal inheritances early. The doctors and lawyers and administrators being bribed to look the other way. I couldn't stop all of them. But I could make it harder. I could shine a light on the darkness. And maybe, just maybe, I could help a few more parents outsmart their own children. Tomorrow is my 76th birthday. Mitchell called to ask if he could visit. Bring a cake. Spend a few hours together like we used to. I said yes. Not because I've forgiven him. Not because we're back to normal. We're not. We may never be. But because life is short, and grudges are heavy, and at 76, I don't have the energy to carry them forever. So tomorrow, my youngest son will come to my house. We'll eat cake. We'll talk about his work at the rehabilitation center, about the people he's helping, about the life he's slowly rebuilding from the ashes of his mistakes. And maybe, if the moment is right, I'll tell him about the quilt. How I hold it every night before I fall asleep. How it still smells faintly of my mother's perfume, even after all these years. How it reminds me that forgiveness isn't about pretending the hurt didn't happen, it's about choosing to move forward anyway. That's the lesson my children never learned. They thought taking was the same as earning. They thought shortcuts existed. They thought their mother was too old and too foolish to fight back. They were wrong about all of it. My name is Eleanor Patricia Hartwell. I'm 75 years old, 76 tomorrow. My children thought I was losing my mind. They thought they could steal my life's work and lock me away forever. They didn't know I was watching. Listening. Recording. For 11 months, I let them believe they'd won. Then I showed them what losing really looks like. Never underestimate a mother. We remember everything.